The 2022-23 NBA season was full of some brilliant players showing their skills. We thought that it was a good time to take a look back at the 2022-23 season and decide who the best 20 players from the season were. Let's get into it. 20. Kyrie Irving. Having started the season in Brooklyn and finishing it in Dallas, it was not the season many were expecting from Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's off-the-court antics took away from his performances on the court, which were pretty impressive. 27 points per game was the third best scoring year of his career, while Kyrie also had his best shooting season from the field. Despite missing out on the playoffs with the Mavericks, it was still a pretty good season for Kyrie Irving. 19. Jamal Murray. The comeback story of the season, Jamal Murray looked even better than before the injury that kept him out of the 2021-22 season. Murray's numbers took a big jump in the playoffs, averaging 26.1 points, 7.1 assists, and 5.7 rebounds, and 1.5 steals per game, all while shooting efficiently. His 34-point triple-double in the finals showed that Murray can be the perfect second superstar for a championship-winning team. 18. Domantas Sabonis. The Sacramento Kings were one of the stories of the season, and Domantas Sabonis was a big reason for that. The Kings center Sabonis led the league in rebounds while also putting up 19 points a game, shooting 62% from the field. His struggles in the playoffs were not great for the Kings, but that should not take away from the brilliant season that Sabonis had. 17. Jaylen Brown. The extension which Jaylen Brown signed this offseason was mainly down to him taking another step forward last season. Brown put up career highs, rebounds, and assists as well as a career-high shooting percentage from the field. His poor shooting performance in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals was far from ideal, but Brown still had a brilliant season nonetheless. 16. Trae Young. Trae Young is in a very difficult position as the best player on a pretty poor Atlanta Hawks team. His raw numbers were still very impressive, but Young's shooting efficiency took a big dive last season, shooting just 33% from the three-point line. 10 assists per game is very impressive, but Young's shooting was equally bad in the playoffs. Still an impressive season, with Young averaging 29.2 points and 10.2 assists in the playoffs. 15. Donovan Mitchell. Compared to expectations, this young Cavs team might not have lived up to expectations in 22-23, but Donovan Mitchell had a career year, finishing with record shooting percentages and averaging 28 points per game. His lackluster performance against the Knicks in the playoffs was not the ending to the season Mitchell or the Cavs were looking for. 14. Ja Morant. Despite all the off-the-field issues this season, Ja Morant is coming off the back of a brilliant season. In the 61 games he played, Morant averaged 26.2 points per game while putting up career highs in rebounds and assists. Injuries made the playoffs quite difficult for Morant, but he still did have a wonderful season. 13. Anthony Davis. An injury-hit regular season might not have really impressed many people, but Davis was also phenomenal in the playoffs. In the Lakers' surprise run to the conference finals, Davis looked like one of the best big men defenders in the league. His 14.1 rebounds and 3.1 blocks per game were exactly what the Lakers needed. It was great to see Anthony Davis being back to near fully healthy. 12. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The OKC Thunder have a very exciting squad, and it is led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who had a massive leap forward in 2022-23. Shai averaged a whopping 31.4 points per game, while still shooting over 50% from the field. He was rewarded as being on the All-NBA first team as well as making what will surely be the first of many All-Star appearances. 5th in MVP voting. This might even be a little bit low on this list for Shai. 11. LeBron James. Despite being 38 years old for the majority of the season, LeBron James still had a very good season. Another All-Star appearance as well as getting on the All-NBA third team, it is incredibly impressive how good LeBron is playing at the moment. Having gotten his Lakers side to the conference finals, losing to the Nuggets is not a bad result considering the form the team were in at the time. 10. Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard did pretty much the same thing he has done for the last few years, which is put up brilliant numbers on a struggling team. But the numbers this year were exceptional, with Lillard putting up 32.2 points per game, averaging a career high from the field. The Blazers' 33-49 record makes the numbers seem a little bit more sour, but Lillard still had a brilliant season. 9. Jason Tatum. Similarly to his teammate, Jason Tatum had a jump in performance this season. 30.1 points per game as well as career highs in rebounds and assists underline just how impressive Tatum was last year. His numbers dipped slightly in the playoffs, but Jason Tatum still helped the Celtics from being one game away from the NBA Finals. Had Tatum not picked up an injury in Game 7, who knows who could have been facing the Nuggets in the Finals. 8. Devin Booker. Suns guard Devin Booker had a very underrated season. Booker put up a career high in points and shooting percentage in the regular season, but it was in the playoffs where Booker excelled. 33.7 points per game while shooting 51% from the three-point line is insane numbers. The Suns might have lost the series to Denver, but they were the only team to beat the Nuggets twice in the playoffs. 7. Steph Curry. Despite not winning another NBA title, the numbers suggest that Steph Curry had a better individual year than last year. 29.4 points per game, rising to 30.5 in the playoffs. Steph had a brilliant year scoring-wise. It was a lack of help that meant Steph did not get past the second round of the playoffs, but still a very good season for Steph. 6. Kevin Durant. Another player who began their season with the Nets and ended it with a different team. KD had a very good year on the court. 28 points per game in the regular season, with that also rising to 29 in the playoffs. Durant showed he can still be a top-level scorer. If he continues the same form from last year, then the Suns could be a team to watch out for in the playoffs. 5. Jimmy Butler. If this was based purely on the regular season, then Jimmy Butler would have been a lot lower on this list. But once again, Butler turned into a different beast in the playoffs. 27 points per game and 40 minutes per night. Butler was really doing it all for the Heat once again, as they reached the NBA Finals. His controlled performance in the Conference Finals Game 7 was a brilliant way to ease the Heat fans' concerns. 4. Luka Doncic. Despite the Mavericks struggling once again, Luka Doncic had another brilliant season, putting up some insane numbers. 32.4 points on 50% shooting was brilliant, as well as averaging more than 8 rebounds and assists per game. A career high in scoring, Doncic will hope that his scoring can turn into playoff wins next season. 3. Joel Embiid. League MVP Joel Embiid was definitely the best player in the regular season last year. 33.1 points, 10.2 rebounds on 55% shooting means there was no way Embiid could not be named the MVP of the league. He would have been number 1 on this list had the playoffs not been taken into account. But the Sixers' big man's performance in the playoffs was very disappointing, although of course injuries did not help his hopes of getting the Sixers into the finals. 2. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Similarly to Embiid, Giannis will have been massively disappointed for his playoff run to be so badly affected by injuries. The Greek Freak put up 31.1 points and 11.8 rebounds per game in the regular season, but could not continue that form in the playoffs. A brilliant regular season, sadly overshadowed by another playoff disappointment for Giannis and the Bucks. 1. Nikola Jokic. If you look at the entire season, there is no doubt that Nikola Jokic has been the best player across that time. With Jamal Murray back, Jokic's scoring numbers dipped slightly in the regular season, but he had an insanely good playoff run. 30 points, 14 rebounds, and almost 10 assists per game, all while shooting 55% from the field and 46% from 3. Those are video game numbers, and Jokic was able to put them up in the playoffs against some very talented teams. Hard to say that Nikola Jokic was not the best player in the NBA last season. Who do you think was the best player in the NBA last season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.